This is your ultimate stop for everything sports. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Should I say more? From the NFL, MLB, the NBA to MMA, it's all in here. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Listen now.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the GSMC Sports Podcast, brought to you once again by the GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, as always, Jeff Malinoff, and Mark Souza has now returned from his hiatus. Hello, sir.
I'm back.
Yes, you are back. And we, fortunately, have a lot to talk about. As my phone has exploded this morning with coaching firings, we'll get on that later. We got NFL playoffs. The stage is set. We have our matchups. And we'll talk about we'll see how if we talk about our predictions and stuff like that. We'll also talk about the college football playoff and the games that were pretty one-sided.
Yeah, I would say so.
Both of them were. We'll talk more about that later. But let's get into the NFL playoffs first, shall we?
Yes.
We officially have our teams as our first seeds for both leagues is New Orleans in the NFC and Kansas City in the AFC. Do you think these are the two top teams in the NFL right now? Would you agree with the seeding?
I think New Orleans is for sure the best team in the NFC. I say that a lot because I think the Rams have maybe not disappeared or fallen apart, but they've struggled a little bit in the last few weeks. And I think the Saints got that. You know, they lost to Dallas. I think it kind of reset them. And I just think that they are the most, formidable team in the NFC going forward. And now that they have home field advantage, it's going to be very tough.
But let me ask you, they got killed by the Carolina Panthers. Does that worry you?
Oh, no. They already had everything locked up. They didn't even start Breeze.
I know. I just it was they snapped their 7-game skid. The Panthers did. I just was wondering if this concerns you at all, if anyone, any substitutions.
Not at all. Not even a little bit.
Okay. Fair enough.
Marvin Lewis just got fired.
Did he really?
He did.
Shut up. Is it over? It is over. He's done. 16 years.
I didn't expect to see that today.
I did not expect that either. He signed an extension last season.
I swear, if they sign Hugh Jackson, I swear.
It's gonna happen. It's absolutely gonna happen. But
oh my God!
Cincinnati,
imagine being a Bengals fan and they finally get rid of Lewis just to hire Hugh Jackson. I think
you said you have a friend that's a Bengals fan. What's he? He's probably like, thank God he's gone. But
yeah, but it's almost like be careful what you wish for, right? Like you're holding your breath until you see who the next hire is.
And you know Cincinnati loves Hugh Jackson. They are head over heels for that guy. He's gonna be their head coach.
Oh my God!
If I had to make a bet,
I mean, if I'm for the pure humor of it all, I hope that this happens. But I actually feel like some people might do some devastating things to themselves.
They gotta do some. They gotta do Bengals fans. They gotta do some interviews first, right?
Oh my God, you would think so.
They have to. I know they hired Hugh Jackson as a special.
It would be the most Bengals thing
manager
ever just to hire Hugh Jackson today. Just say, you know what, we're gonna go with you and not talk to anyone else.
They probably will, huh? That sounds like a Bengals thing to do. I can't believe it's finally over.
Who doesn't want to see Hugh versus Baker twice a year?
We already did. But the thing is, this seemed like a unicorn, a mystical beast we would never see. Hugh Jackson being fired. We thought he would leave on his own volition.
You mean Marvin Lewis?
What'd I say?
Hugh.
Or same thing.
Yeah,
it's the same thing.
They both shouldn't be coaching the Bengals next year.
And Marvin Lewis, it took a long time for this to happen, 16 years. Not one playoff win. 16 years, not one playoff win. That's incredible.
I think that's the definition of insanity. Is that right?
Oh, at 100%.
Expecting different results.
They've been good every time they make the playoffs, they've been a good team as well. It's not like they barely have made it. They've made it convincingly multiple
I really
times.
hope that it's somebody else, honestly, than Hugh. Like, I mean, it would be funny, but like, I hope that the Bengals hire somebody who's the opposite of Marvin Lewis, and somebody who will come in and kind of. I think they should restart. I really do. They need to change at quarterback.
They won't accept it.
They need to change at quarterback. I think they got to get rid of some of these players like Vontez Burfict. I think you just kind of got to just completely start from scratch.
His career's in doubt from his.
I would go full rebuild if I'm the Bengals. I think I would try to get maybe the top quarterback this year, even if you have to trade up for him. I'm not sure, but man, you got to think like you got rid of Lewis. Dalton's got to be the next domino to fall. Right?
Yeah,
like
he's due for a cut as well. And also, like, on the drive here to the studio, like 3 or 4 firings have happened.
Mm-hmm. We'll talk about those.
We're very early in the morning.
So let's talk about the playoffs real quick, though. The playoffs are set.
We had to talk about Marvin Lewis.
I know. Yeah. We talked about the one New Orleans Saints. You go to the flip side, Kansas City. They're the number 1 seed.
They held on to
Have
it.
they won a playoff game in your lifetime? I think they've won one in mine, but I don't think they've won at least a home playoff game, right?
Maybe not a home.
The last time they won a home playoff game was Joe Montana their quarterback, or did he not
I'm going to
win?
look it up.
I don't know if he even won because they lost.
Think so.
They got close with him.
Oh, the Chiefs beat the Texans. That it was at Texas though, and they were like using their third string Tom Savage as the quarterback.
Right, but I don't think the Chiefs have won a home playoff game in like I want to say 25.
January 16th, 1994 was the last playoff win.
No,
before then.
Was that at home?
I'll look.
That was the year that Joe Montana was.
It was
quarterback.
It was against the Oilers at Astrodome.
Then they lost their next game.
Yes. Okay. Now I gotta look up home playoff win. Wow, it's been a couple of years.
Yeah, I don't think they've won one in your lifetime. I don't even know if they won
1995.
One in
Yeah. If you just look at this, okay. At New England they lost after that to Montana.
You keep looking that up, and we'll talk about the rest of the AFC. So the Patriots. I thought it was important that the Patriots got the number 2 seed. I don't feel.
I'm sorry, that was wrong. I apologize for the incorrecting. That 1994 playoffs, they lost to Pittsburgh at home in overtime.
Mm-hmm. So,
no, I'm sorry, they lost to the Bills at Buffalo. Wow, this list is completely backwards. They lost to the Bills at Buffalo. That was during the Buffalo Bills' full 4 straight Super Bowl appearances.
Gotcha. Do you think that the Patriots, it was imperative for them to get the bye in the home field?
100%. That was more needed for them than ever before.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So Saturday, so these are your playoff teams.
Mm-hmm.
In the NFC, you have the Saints, the Rams, and then you have the Bears, you have the Cowboys, the Seahawks, and the Philadelphia Eagles have snuck their way in.
Okay, now I got to ask you. Since Nick, I'm not saying even if he doesn't even make the Super Bowl, do they have to talk about who's their quarterback going forward? The Eagles.
They can.
They have to talk about it. They have to have at least. You still think Carson Wentz? You still think
they invested way too much in Carson Wentz, and he has been extremely good when he's been healthy.
Not this season.
I know, but when he's been healthy, he didn't play healthy this year.
Okay. I'm thinking they must have a conversation.
No, they can't.
2 years in a row, man. Okay.
Even if Nick Foles wins the Super Bowl this year and gets MVP, he will still not be the quarterback for the Eagles next year.
I don't know about that. That's a big stretch. Him winning the Super Bowl, back-to-back Super Bowls and back-to-back Super Bowl MVPs, you gotta make him the guy. Or you gotta at least talk about it. You can't just brush him off again.
They picked Carson Wentz as the top quarterback. They picked him to be their franchise quarterback.
I understand why they picked him.
And he hasn't done anything to show that he's not a franchise quarterback.
I understand why they kept him this season because he was having an MVP year before the ACL injury.
He's their starting quarterback. He's their guy. When he's healthy, or when he's healthy enough, he will play.
Okay. Now, wildcard teams in the AFC go Indianapolis, Houston, Los Angeles Chargers, and Baltimore. Who is the most dangerous team in the wild card spot in the AFC? I say
probably
the Chargers. Okay, so we're
probably the Chargers are undefeated on the road this year,
Isn't
and they're
that
going to have to
insane?
play pretty much every game on the road.
Honestly, I've never seen a team with an advantage on the road before, but
They just played the Ravens too, which is funny. But they will rematch. So the playoffs on Saturday, because now we get 2 days of football. Colts Texans.
Texans
That
Texans
game
are
will
a
kick
dangerous
off the
team.
playoffs. Colts Texans in Houston.
Deshaun Watson's been a beast.
And then we have, in the nightcap, we have Seattle and Dallas.
Probably the least attractive game to me personally, because just those are probably the two of the worst teams in the playoffs.
Maybe.
It's either the Cowboys or the Eagles is one of the worst.
I think I'm more interested in the Seahawks Cowboys than the Colts Texans, but I think
Really?
it's I think these are good games though. I mean, I'm
Texans
happy.
and Colts is way more entertaining to me than Seattle and
Colts
and Dallas.
The Colts and Eagles making it really capped off what I think should be.
It was a
good
great
playoffs.
week. Just all the games. A lot of games had something on the line this week.
Mm-hmm.
Usually in week 17, you already know what's
I
happening.
think I counted yesterday because somebody that I know said, "Oh man, week 17 is always boring." And I was like, "Man, there's I think 10 or 11 of the 16 games had some sort of playoff implications. There was 121 different playoff scenarios
If you
that could
listen to
happen yesterday."
if you listen to the podcast on Friday, that's what I was talking about. I was like, there is a lot of games with a lot of implications.
Yeah, and I feel like that's...
And there was a one-game winner in.
So what I like about... Exactly. That was nice. So they flexed that game to the night game where it was a winner-in game. It was a
Smart
playoff
choice,
game. It was a playoff game.
Yeah.
That's what we saw last night.
It
But
was,
what I
yeah.
liked that the NFL has done is flexed scheduling week 17 because it would have been terrible if some of the teams that played in the afternoon knew the result of what happened in the morning and didn't play certain players or things like that. It's good where all the teams that had something on the line all played at the same time. For example, Minnesota and Philadelphia playing their games at the same time. What was it in the morning? Houston and New England playing at the same time to see who's going to get the number 2 seed, and so on and so on. That's good. That's good.
Pittsburgh and Cleveland playing at the same time as well.
Exactly. And for me, I know a lot of our listeners, they probably know that I'm a big soccer guy. Like I'm a big in the English Premier League and other leagues, on the last game of the season, they're all played at the same time because you don't want other games being affected by what happened previously. So everybody's out to win that game, even if they can, advance or win the league or whatever. They're out to do it without knowing the result, and that just makes for a more entertaining day.
Yeah, and you're also looking at the scoreboard in the stadium because
One eye on the scoreboard, one eye on the field.
Yeah, there's a lot on players' minds, and I do have to say, the Minnesota Vikings, they had their playoff in their
They're
grasp.
my biggest failure this year.
Do you blame Kirk Cousins for this? Because they didn't lose a lot of guys, like we've said before. And they had Case Keenum, and they went 13-3. They get Kirk Cousins, who's arguably a better quarterback, and they go 8-7-1.
I don't know if I blame him, but there was some credence to the fact that Kirk Cousins has a terrible record against teams above 500.
Was it 4 wins? Something minuscule?
In his career, I think he has 4 or 5 wins. He has a bunch of losses. And the thing is that he might be overrated. He might be overrated, but at the same time, Minnesota, and we know this, it happened to Jacksonville too. When you do so well, you have to play a lot tougher schedule the next year. Mm-hmm. When you're Minnesota last year, you fly under the radar, you play a 3rd place, a 4th place schedule, you can beat some teams, you have some easier games. Then when you're a team that was that close to going to the Super Bowl, you add Kirk Cousins, everybody kind of has a target on your back, and you're just playing better teams in general. Mm-hmm. So.
And also, you got to look at the fact that, and to answer your question before, Kirk Cousins only has 4 wins against winning record
it's
teams.
4 and
26.
20. Yeah, it's ridiculous.
I think with this loss to the Chicago Bears, it might be 27 now.
I have them. I was going to ask you who your biggest failure was this year.
Minnesota, without question.
I have Minnesota. What about Pittsburgh? What about Jacksonville?
Jacksonville was a huge disappointment, but I think a lot of people saw it coming because of Blake Bortles, and they had a winning record, so they had a tougher schedule. I think some people saw that coming, though.
Jacksonville, I knew was not going to be good. Pittsburgh surprised.
And speaking of Jacksonville, we need to talk about this. They are not going to pay. They avoided his guarantee on his contract.
Who's that?
Leonard Fournette.
Leonard
the Jags
Fournette.
have.
Yeah, because they say he broke his conduct or something,
and due to his suspension a couple of weeks ago. But I think that's a cop out.
I think that's
due to his play.
I think that is a terrible franchise decision by the Jaguars because you're pretty much, and I'm not a big Leonard Fournette guy, but you're pretty much telling free agents like if you're a free agent, does this news make you want to play for Jacksonville, knowing that if you kind of mess up or do something that
they can void your contract? I would definitely read my contract a little more carefully if I'm looking at Jacksonville.
Jacksonville's already a tough place to get a free agent to go to without overspending. They're not a destination, and they're ran by Gran Torino, Clint Eastwood, get off my lawn.
Yeah, Tom Coughlin's never been the nice guy, has he? He's always been kind of a jerk. I mean, when you look at players when they mess up, and
he's definitely, he runs a tight ship, right? Like I don't know if I would say that. There are players that say they love playing for him. I mean,
but you see him on the sideline sometimes just going just yelling in guys' ears, and it's just like, I don't know. I think
that's just a bad look though, because
maybe
what are you saying? Like, we don't want you on the team, and that's fine, but I think it's just you're sending free agents a bad message.
That's 100%
and players in your organization. Like if you're a guy like Jalen Ramsey, and your contract's coming up, I might be like, no, I'm good. I'm going to test the waters out in free agency. Yeah. So, Jacksonville, though, didn't you kind of see that coming though? That they're going to have a bad year. I mean, last year. Get this. They had a great defense, right?
Mm-hmm.
7 of their games, of their divisional games, were played against Brissett. Who was the quarterback for the Titans? Was it Matt Castle, the backup quarterback for Mariota? Was it Matt Castle last year for the Titans?
Last year was Matt Castle. This year was Blaine Gabbert, who was their
the Jaguars played against Brissett, Castle, and they played against the Texans twice without Deshaun Watson. So that was Tom Savage, I think, both times. And they played Cleveland with Deshaun Kaiser. That's 8 games right there. That's half their season against substandard quarterbacks.
And if you remember, when they played a quarterback in Jimmy Garoppolo of 49ers, they played their starters and they lost.
Yeah, and I think they were easy to kind of see a regression there, just because you knew their quarterback play was going to be bad.
And how they made it to the AFC title game? Who they beat?
They beat Pittsburgh.
They did beat Pittsburgh, but
in a shootout, which no one saw coming.
Yeah, how they got to Pittsburgh was they beat Buffalo.
Yeah,
so. It was a steady pace.
They beat Pittsburgh. I give them all the credit in the world for that.
They almost beat New England. I'll give them that too. But how they got there, you're right, is a lot to be looked at.
Pittsburgh, though, blowing this divisional lead, that has to be probably my second biggest failure. What about the biggest surprise or the biggest winner for you this season?
The biggest surprise, player-wise, obviously, we know who that is. But when you look at the teams, I did not expect the Saints to be number 1 in the NFC. I'm going to be honest with you. I saw them as, I could see 2 seed. I could see
What about the Bears, though?
The Bears, definitely. But how the Saints went from, I thought 11-5 would be the best they could do, to 13-3 and arguably the best team in the NFL. That surprised me a lot. Mm-hmm. And, of course, when Chicago got Khalil Mack, you're like, okay, this is definitely going to boost up what they have. And no one expected that.
Yeah, for sure. I think my biggest winner is the Colts, to be honest with you.
Andrew Luck did an amazing job.
And that's a big reason. It's because Andrew Luck is back. We know that his career is back on track. We don't have to wonder if he'll ever play again or if he'll ever be good. If you're a Colts fan, 2 things happened this year that were fantastic. Andrew Luck is back. He looks good. And the other one is they have an offensive line. For the first time in Andrew Luck's career, he doesn't have to get killed every time he drops back to pass.
And we don't have to worry about when he's going to get decapitated.
Yeah, and it's nice to see that team invest in their offensive line. You know, they drafted Quentin Nelson.
He's been doing well.
He's a stud. Like an absolute one of the best 2 or 3 guards in the NFL already. Like he already is. I think he didn't even allow a sack this year. The guy is just a monster.
I think the person rated above him on the offensive line-wise was another Notre Dame lineman.
Oh, you're talking about the
McGlinchey.
Cowboys. Oh, McGlinchey. Okay.
He was the top-rated
Martin from Zach Martin from Dallas. Those 3.
Well, he wasn't a rookie, but
no, I know. But all these Notre Dame linemen have been
Notre Dame
up.
just knows how to recruit linemen. Apparently,
that's true. That is their thing is tight ends and linemen. They have Rudolph, Eifert. Who else? There's a couple other tight ends that they had go through their ranks, but I like what the Colts are doing. I think that
we'll be talking about Notre Dame later.
Yeah, I like what the Colts are doing. I think that this season, to their fans, they now have a future again. Not just this season. You don't have to be like, oh, that was a fun season. They're back on track. They signed Wayne Drew to be that franchise quarterback, and now I think they can all exhale a little bit. Now, I know they want to win this game against the Texans, but the fact is, even if they lose, this is a fantastic season to come back from after the couple of years of not knowing, is Luck going to play again?
Yeah.
Josh McDaniels took the job and then turned down the job. Like, that was kind of awkward.
Well, yeah, we thought it was because of the Colts, but it was really, I think it was just Kraft saying, hey, you're going to be our head coach once Belichick's gone. So, anyways, and then you look at, I have to ask you a question before we go to break, and that's, besides the bye week teams, because those are easy to predict, oh, those teams go to the Super Bowl. What wild card team do you see that can make a run to the Super Bowl?
Wild card team. I think the Chargers are the obvious choice, but I actually think
I can see 2 wild card teams playing each other in the Super Bowl this year.
Maybe it does feel very wide open. I will say that. I don't know, man. I would have to say it's an NFC team, but I really can't decide if it's Seattle or Philadelphia, to be quite honest with you. I have no idea.
You can see them both making the
I think
Super Bowl?
Philadelphia, I think it worked out well for them because I do think the Bears are a really good team, but I think that if they could have picked any wildcard team to play, they might have picked them or any first team to play because Chicago doesn't have the experience. They got not a rookie, but Trubisky is a rookie playoff quarterback. Like he's never played in the playoffs.
True.
You don't know what to expect from the Bears offense. You know their defense will show up. But for Philadelphia, you got to think like, hey, we've been here before.
Yeah.
I think we can win this game.
And also look at the fact that if they do beat the Bears, they will have to play the Saints.
That's true. But, hey, you know, again, they're riding that wave, right?
Right.
So, anyways, what would it look like if we all listen more? Listening to audiobooks inspires us, motivates us, and even brings us closer. And there's no better place to listen than with Audible. Get your first audiobook free, along with 2 selected Audible original titles, exclusive fitness programs, when you start a 30-day trial. So take the time to listen on Audible. Visit audible.com/GSMC book, or you can text GSMC book to 500 500. Again, go to audible.com for your free trial. That is GSMC book, or you can text GSMC book to 500 500 to get started today.
What happens to your decision-making when you drink? Well, after one drink, you feel confident. A few more, and calling your ex at 1 a.m. seems like a great idea. And you're pretty sure the secret to a great taco is 4-day-old macaroni. The bottom line, drunk you doesn't make great decisions. So you're risking a DUI or worse if you count on him to get you home. Plan before you party. Get home safe. Brought to you by Washington.
Welcome back to the GSMC Sports Podcast. We just talked about some coaches that just got fired as we were talking, and the playoff
I'm still
matchups.
keeping my hand on the Twitter
Oh,
machine.
I am totally as well. I got Bleacher Report notifying me every second, and now
Oh, fired. No,
I was going to say who. let's talk about now to go to college football. We had the college football playoffs.
There was college football this weekend.
Oh, there was. There was multiple games, but there was 2 big games. College football playoff games, semifinals.
2 letdowns, huh?
Notre Dame
maybe
and
one.
Clemson. I would say the other one was as well. Oklahoma and Alabama. Cotton Bowl.
At least that one had some more points, I guess.
Yeah, but there was one game that just was head and shoulders above the rest in disappointment. And that was definitely Clemson and Notre Dame. 30-3 the final score. Wasn't even that close. It was tied at 3 at the end of the first. Then Clemson scores 27 unanswered points.
Yeah, Clemson. I hate to say it, but I saw this coming.
I did too. I picked the underdog Notre Dame in my bowl picks.
And I follow Notre Dame. I mean, I've watched them ever since Rudy. When I was a kid, that was one of my favorite movies.
If you're a sports fan, you have to watch Rudy.
Yeah, absolutely. I still watch it. It's in my DVD player right now.
I've cried a couple times watching that movie.
My wife had never seen it, and she was like, "I want to watch this," and I was
Did she cry?
I don't know. I don't think she cried, but she really liked that. She was like, "Man, this movie."
I cried when he got the acceptance letter.
When he's sitting down, next to the little stream or river.
Yeah,
or whatever,
I thought it was like, oh, emotions.
Yeah, but it doesn't make you want to punch his family when they're all haters,
Yeah,
like his dad and his brother, especially his brother.
Dude, his girlfriend is the biggest douchebag.
Yeah. We don't need to. Yeah, let's not talk about her.
Oh my God. Anyways,
yeah, what's up with that coming home for Christmas?
You need an antagonist. You need someone to overcome the odds, and you can't be like his dad. Can't be all approving because then it's like, yeah, okay.
So Rudy didn't help Notre Dame win this game. Is what we're getting at.
Oh yeah, no, he could have gave them 10 points though, probably, even though he's a defensive end.
Yeah, they didn't do much on offense, so I guess anything would have helped.
30-3. It wasn't even that close. And
what about on the flip side, though?
We had Oklahoma versus Alabama. Alabama wins this one 45-34. Kyle Murray had a pretty good game, 308 yards, 2 touchdowns. There was actually, and he also rushed for over 100 yards and a touchdown.
I feel like this game, God, man, I just realized that Vegas, they are really good at what they do.
Yes.
The over-under for this game was 81. And it finished at 79.
Did you see that Kyle Murray touchdown where he throws it off the run? And it was the most beautiful throw ever. And his dad was not even happy.
He looks like a spitting image of Russell Wilson when he plays.
I can totally see that.
Like he literally
he was a baseball player as well.
The way that he moves around in the pocket, the way that he even tucks the ball away and runs, it's almost like I'm watching Russell Wilson in a different.
But he also
shirt.
rushed for 100 yards as well, which I don't think Russell Wilson has. I know Russell Wilson's more of a scrambler. He doesn't really run the ball that much, though.
I think this game wasn't as close as the score was.
Do you still think it's smart for him to go to baseball, not football? Is he still leaning towards baseball?
I don't know. I don't know what the scouts say about Kyler Murray, but if I was him, I think I would try to play football. Unless
I feel like baseball's a safer route, though, health-wise.
Look, here's my thing on him. Yes, it's safer and there's more money in it, and there's better longevity. But if he wants to play football, if he likes football more, he should go play football because he's good enough to do both. Like if it was one of those things where man, he's an okay quarterback, but he's a great pitcher, I'd be like, slam dunk, go pitch, you know? But we're talking about a dude, he should be a first-round pick in the NFL. I would say a first-round pick.
Yeah,
maybe not top 5, I don't know. But if I'm a team and I need a quarterback and he's available, he's the guy I'm looking at for sure.
I agree with that 100%. But the thing with that is also I got to look at the fact that obviously what he wants more, there's obviously more money in baseball, better contracts in baseball. But if he goes to football, there's sponsorships he can get with that adds on. Gronkowski says, I haven't even touched my Patriot money. It's only I've touched my sponsorship money. And a bunch of that.
He's very marketable.
Absolutely.
Kyler Murray is very marketable. Like Russell Wilson is marketable, Kyler Murray is very marketable.
Oh, yeah. He could be the face of a franchise for sure.
Absolutely.
But the thing is, he did everything he could offensively, but defense just couldn't stop anybody on the Alabama side of the ball.
And like I mentioned, I think the score. I mean, I know they scored late. It didn't feel like it was that close of a game to me. At least it was more entertaining.
It was 21-0 going into the second quarter, and then it was 31-10 at halftime. So obviously they scored. They did their best to come back, but it wasn't really close. It just seems the score sounds, it was kind of close. But if you watch the game, it was never close.
Mm-hmm. So you wanted to talk about the playoff system?
Yeah, I have an issue with it because we just saw 2 blowouts. I would be confident to say, especially in Notre Dame being blown
I'll agree
out.
with that.
And there is there was guys on the Georgia team tweeting out to the college football playoff committee, "What are you guys doing? This is all your fault," which it is.
They shouldn't have lost 2 games. That's my response to Georgia.
True.
They shouldn't have lost.
They
2
were
games.
still. I think they were still better than Notre Dame.
Maybe so, but they didn't deserve to be there.
But that begs the question: do they need to extend it?
Like the Minnesota Vikings should be in the playoffs, but they don't deserve to be there. Mm-hmm. That's how I feel about Georgia, right?
Okay.
Like if they lost to Alabama, if they would have lost 1 game to Alabama and didn't lose to LSU, they'd be in the playoffs.
Okay, but there's 6 teams in the NFL. Should they move it to 6 teams and see how that goes, or move it just to 8, or even go up to 10?
I'm not sure. I do like 8 teams. I think 8 teams, if they do expand it, that's the sweet spot. Like, I do think, hey, if we go ahead and do this, 8 sounds reasonable. You have the 5 Power 5 conferences, and then you have 3 at-large bids. That makes the most sense of all the theories that I've heard so far. But, Jeff, do you really want to add more teams and see more blowouts? That's the only thing.
Well, we do not guarantee blowouts, but once it gets to the nitty gritty, once it gets down the Final 4 again, we're not going to see blowouts.
Well, I don't know about that. So here's the thing. I think in theory it might make sense, but right now as it stands, since they've introduced the college football playoff with the 4-team system, the average points per game that a team loses or wins by is 22, and we're assuming those are the 4 best teams. If they go to 8, we could see plenty more blowouts. I mean, we could see a team like Central Florida playing against Alabama. I'm not saying I'm against the expansion of the playoff. I'm just saying that there could be just as many blowouts. I mean, and just 2 more games or whatever. So
yeah, I just think it may be more fair. And teams won't feel as snubbed, like Ohio State won't feel as snubbed, or Georgia won't feel as snubbed, or even Central Florida wouldn't feel as snubbed. But the fact remains that there are teams that get snubbed out that people think are better than the teams that got in. And I think this would really end all the
Ohio State had that really bad loss. I mean,
I know they did. And
I know a team can mess up once. I'm totally on board with that.
Slip up.
But it's like Notre Dame deserved to be there. Because they won all of their games. And you know what? Of the 4 teams, they had the second hardest strength of schedule. Of the 4 playoff teams, Notre Dame was number 2. Mm-hmm. Oklahoma was actually number 1. Alabama and Clemson were number 3 and 4 when they ranked the 4 teams in their positioning in the playoffs. So I get it. Notre Dame got crushed. But they won all their games. They played what the computers and what people say is a tougher schedule than Alabama and Clemson. And they won all of them. So, I mean, it is what it is, right? They got crushed by a better team.
Yes, but I still think that maybe I don't know if you do move to 8, you got to stick with it. You can't just go back to 4. I feel like you can't test it out. You got to know for certain that this is
So let me ask you this. Mm-hmm. Georgia and Ohio State, I get it. Like, they have an argument that they should have been one of the playoff teams, right? If we would have expanded to 8, we would have saw Michigan and Central Florida play against Alabama and Clemson.
Who knows?
Michigan got destroyed by how many points by Florida?
A lot.
Like 30?
It was bad.
28, 45-17? And then UCF would have lost by how many points to Alabama, do you think?
It was 41-15, by the way, Florida and Michigan. It was pretty bad.
So Michigan would have lost to Clemson by how many points?
15-45.
Probably 5 touchdowns.
Yeah, and then
I mean, if Clemson crushed Notre Dame beat Michigan. So I'm kind of doing the math
tomorrow
here.
we do see a lot of those New Year's Day games that have a lot of implications. Of
LSU, Central Florida.
Yes, Kentucky, even Penn State. Penn State was one of those teams. But
we're gonna watch Ohio State destroy Washington in the Rose Bowl.
Oh yeah, it's gonna be bad. But what I'm trying to say is maybe this will prove if these teams deserve to be in a playoff scenario rather than a bowl game.
What if Georgia loses to Texas? Wouldn't that be kind of funny if they lose after
all the trash talking? I think it.
Wouldn't that be funny if they went out?
How does that taste? I would just ask Georgia.
Yeah.
That's all you gotta ask. Because Texas is 15, not even close, and yet Georgia is number 5, and they're the first team to get snubbed.
Hey, you know what? When you look at two games like what we just saw, it's easy to say we should expand the playoffs, but it's also you have to understand that just because you expand the playoffs doesn't mean you get better competition. Because as we know in college football,
I wouldn't say
usually there's a big
competition.
drop off between the top two or three teams.
I do agree. There's not it's not better competition, but I would say there's more opportunities for other programs that really don't get the opportunity, like to be a top 4 team.
I agree with that.
I think it would just.
I don't have sympathy for Georgia though. Like I have sympathy for a Central Florida
And Ohio State, I would say.
Kind
They had
of.
one loss.
Yeah, but their loss is just. I'm sorry, I keep saying it, but you can't lose by like 30 points to a terrible team. Like you just can't. You can't do it. You just can't. But anyways, Central Florida, I understand because they went undefeated. They did what they had to do. Obviously, they lost their quarterback, and that would have definitely hurt them. And it's probably going to be one of the big reasons why they get handled by LSU, to be honest with you. But it's easy to say when you look at games that happen this weekend in college football to say we need to expand it, but I don't know. I don't know. I would like to see it go to 8 though. I would like to see that. I think everybody would be happy if that did. I think that would. Don't you think? Like if we go to 8 teams, I think everybody can just kind of be. That's a middle ground that we can all agree on.
Yeah.
Like we'll expand the playoffs, but we're doing it 8. That's it. You're happy. The people who don't want it expanded, yes, they give up a little bit, but at least they keep it small.
Yeah,
and
we
go
have
to like 16.
Ohio
or
State
something.
and Georgia and in Central Florida would take the last spot in Michigan, take it and not be snubbed. And well, I guess we'll talk about Harbaugh if later because we might have to question his future in Michigan. My personal opinion.
Yeah, he's that was a terrible showing.
Yes, but he has had terrible showings in championship games before. Maybe he should read more or listen to audiobooks. Audible, for that matter, has the largest selection of audiobooks on the planet, and now Audible members get more than ever before. Each month they get 3 titles of their choice, 1 audiobook, 2 Audible originals, and finished programs they can't get anywhere else. There's never been a better time to experience Audible. Try it free for 30 days by visiting audible.com/GSMCbook or by texting the code GSMCbook to 500500. Remember, if you want to try it free for 30 days, try Audible, go to audible.com/GSMCbook or text the code GSMCbook to 500500.
What happens to your decision-making when you drink? Well, after one drink, you feel confident. A few more, and calling your ex at 1 a.m. seems like a great idea. And you're pretty sure the secret to a great taco is 4-day-old macaroni. The bottom line, drunk you doesn't make great decisions. So you're risking a DUI or worse if you count on him to get you home. Plan before you party. Get home safe. Brought to you by Washington Target Zero.
Welcome back, everyone, to the GSMC Sports Podcast. We just finished talking about the college football playoff, and maybe they should change it, maybe they should not. It's not up to us, unfortunately. But we got to move on to head coaching firings. We talked a little bit about it because Marvin Lewis got fired as we were talking on our first segment. But we have to talk about every single firing because it is that Black Monday or coach firing day, to be more specific. Adam Gase, Miami head coach, was fired today as well.
Yep.
Do you agree with the firing on this one?
It's kind of funny because the Dolphins, like the last 300 games in their team history, they're pretty much 500, and he was 23-25 in his coaching tenure. Which, if he would have just won yesterday, he would have been 500.
Yeah,
I thought that was.
He didn't have all that bad. He's never been terrible. He's just been average.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess they want more than average. I understand.
I think that Miami is a very tough place to coach. And I think that owner, Stephen Ross, is a very tough person to work
Stubborn.
for. Miami, I think their problems run deeper than the head coach, so I kind of feel for Adam Gase. I don't know if he was the best coach. I did question a lot of times where he seemed to not want to give his best running back the football a lot of times. But with that being said, he had Ryan Tannehill. So it sounds like Miami's also going to be parting ways with Ryan Tannehill. That was another report.
That is a long time coming as well.
But it's like, it's one of those things in the NFL that if you don't have a top quarterback, it's really hard to win every year. And it can definitely change how coaches are looked at. I mean, we don't know how some of these, if you look when we go down the list right now, there's going to be something all in common with these coaches that were fired when we go down the list. So
next is one we can both agree on that deserved it. Vance Joseph.
And Vance Joseph.
Long time coming on that one.
And who is his quarterback?
Well, his quarterback was Case Keenum.
And before that?
Jesus.
Trevor Siemian.
Yeah, there's like 3 of them, weren't there?
Brock Osweiler.
There's one more.
Paxton Lynch. So we said that the Dolphins had Adam Gase. He brought back Cutler because Tannehill got hurt. Tannehill got hurt again. He had Brock Osweiler. It's a quarterback thing, right? Like, no good quarterback. So Vance Joseph gets fired.
Mm-hmm. But he had a defense and just kind of crumbled under with him there. Wouldn't that be the case, you would say?
I think the defense is decent for Denver, but they're not the same defense as they were when they won the Super Bowl.
No, not at all. But he still has Von Miller, who was
It's just hard to win without a good quarterback plus not a dominant defense.
Okay.
If you have a mediocre quarterback, you need a dominant defense. We saw it with the Vikings last year with Case Keenum. Case Keenum was decent enough, but Minnesota did well because of their defense. So
yes, I agree.
All right, who's next?
Steve Wilkes.
Who's his quarterback?
Stan Bradford and Josh Rosen. But this is only his first season.
Who's the next coach?
But,
we'll come back to all of them. But
okay.
Who's the next coach?
Let's see. The Buccaneers head coach.
Dirk Cutter.
Thank you, Dirk
and
Cutter.
Who's his quarterback?
Fitzmagic and Jameis Winston. You can't go wrong with that. Okay. Yeah.
And then who's the next one?
Is there? Oh, Todd Bowles.
And who's his quarterback?
Sam Darnold wasn't that bad.
But he's a rookie. It's hard to win it with a rookie.
But before that was, who was it?
And then before there's only one coach on this list who's been fired this year who has a good NFL quarterback that we know is a good NFL quarterback. Now, Baker Mayfield might be a good NFL quarterback.
I mean, are you talking about Mike McCarthy?
Exactly. I'm talking about Mike McCarthy. And who was the last one that was fired this morning?
Oh, Marvin Lewis.
Andy Dalton.
Who has had good seasons.
He's not good, though.
But I will say he's not the worst. I would say you can still try to win with him.
He's like quarterback purgatory.
Oh, that's a little harsh.
No, it's not. Think about it. You just said he's not the worst. He's certainly nowhere near the best.
True.
So he's been a conundrum for them for a while. Like, what do we do? Do we draft a quarterback or do we just stick with Andy Dalton?
Fair enough. You have an excellent point. But I will say...
So all these coaches have one thing in common, except for Mike McCarthy. And Mike McCarthy is firing. He was there for a long time. He didn't do enough. That's completely different. We understand as football fans why they needed to
I don't agree with the Steve Wilkes firing because it's only been a season.
Mm-hmm.
Coaches can't do anything in a season with a team like that. Chip Kelly got fired from the 49ers after one season, but there was always controversial about if he belonged there. Steve Wilkes, there was never talk about him not belonging there.
So it's hard for us.
I just feel Steve Wilkes got a little cheated in this.
I know what you're saying. 1 year's not enough. I'm in theory.
Marvin Lewis got 16.
Yes. In theory, I'm on board with you saying that Steve Wilkes didn't get a fair shake. Okay, mm-hmm. I am on that. But what we don't know as fans is what happens day to day, right?
True.
So
very true.
What if you're the guy who hired Steve Wilkes and you're like, man, this is the guy. I believe in him. And then over the course of 8 to 9 months, you realize like it's not just on the field. Like I don't agree with the way he his practice regimen. I don't agree with the way he handles players. I thought he was something else. He's not what I expect. And I don't think that he can
lied
change.
on his resume, quote unquote.
No, I wouldn't say lie on his resume, but you know what it is. Like it's a job interview. You get the job. Maybe it was the wrong fit.
Good first impression, but then you know the guy a little bit more.
I mean, I'm not saying that the Cardinals are right or wrong. I'm just saying like, we don't have evidence that Wilks is a good coach. Maybe he is. Maybe he's not. But I'm a little hesitant to say he didn't get enough time because, I mean, like, let's just say if you go on a date with a girl, you have a good first couple dates, but then a couple months down the road you realize, like, man, this isn't really like what I thought was going to be.
I'm going to say dating and head coaches are two completely different things.
But is it? You're talking about a relationship. You're the GM. You hire the coach. It's a relationship. I mean, it's a different type of relationship. It's a business.
Every relationship's going to have its rough patches, no?
I agree with that, but do you stick with every person that you date just because you
Well, it depends on how many rough patches there are. If there's only one, then
that's just... Exactly, and that's all I'm saying. Like, we don't know what happened. What if he was, like, the worst coach when it came to dealing with players? Like, what if you hired him and then you saw, like, man, I wouldn't have said that to that guy. I don't think that's right. Because the coach is what? A manager, right? Like it's kind of like there's a business. Mm-hmm. The general manager is the regional manager, right? What's Dwight Schrute?
Is the assistant to the regional manager.
Yeah, so the GM is the assistant to the regional manager, and then and then the GM is underneath that person, I guess. I don't know, but
he's the assistant to the regional manager.
So going back to all these coaches, which job do you like the most?
If you're a teams?
Coach, if you were a coaching candidate, and which job would you be most excited to interview for?
Without question, Cleveland. Cleveland's my. I can't believe I'm saying that.
Cleveland or Green Bay?
I'm Cleveland over Green Bay, 100%. Because the young team, you got tons of cap space. The future looks way brighter in Cleveland than it does in Green Bay. Green Bay looks like it's in a period where it's going to need to rebuild. Cleveland can win now. I can't believe I just said that, but it's true.
It might be true.
No,
it looks good.
Cleveland on paper,
but Minnesota
looks like
looked good too coming into this year, and they fell flat.
I feel like this is different.
But you realize that it's kind of funny what you're saying. Because you're really like going to bat for Cleveland right now. Like we're talking about a franchise that falls on its face getting out of bed every morning. It seems like,
not this year. They had a rough start, but
are you at all worried about Baker Mayfield being a leader and a franchise quarterback? Though?
How he played this season, I'm not worried.
But I'm not necessarily saying like the way he played on the field, but are you concerned that he can actually lead a franchise and be the face of your team?
I think because
he's still kind of immature.
Absolutely, 100%. But the players are riling around him. It's not like they're separating.
If he doesn't mature, though, would you be worried? Because he's still very young. Let's just say, like in the next couple of years.
I'll tell you this: if the team rallies around him, still, I don't need anything else. I just need the team to have chemistry and rally around their quarterback. That's all I need. And they've been doing that with Baker Mayfield.
Nick Chubb. I still would argue that Green Bay is the better one because of all these spots we just talked about, none of them have a good quarterback except for Cleveland has that's looking up for them. The Jets, it's looking up for them too because Darnold, I thought, finished the season very strong.
But Cleveland overall has the best team out of all these available.
They have the most young talent for sure. I
think they have the best
that.
defense out of every one of them. I think their offense is very good. They have everyone's young and talented. It can only improve because they're like this team is like wine. They just improve with age.
They might.
And call me crazy. This team could get a bye in the playoffs next season.
I wouldn't go that far.
This season, if they didn't miss a couple field goals, could have 11 wins on the season.
You're right.
And with 11 wins, that takes away.
But there's a lot of ifs and buts, right? Like,
yeah,
yes,
but
they played very well.
What makes you think if
Hugh Jackson held them back? I'm with that 100%.
They have a kicker now that can make field goals, so definitely an opportunity to get into the playoffs next season.
Mm-hmm. I'm with you. I like what Cleveland's doing, but I am hesitant because they are Cleveland, and I know that Aaron Rodgers is a really good NFL quarterback. Yeah. That's all I'm saying.
We can disagree that the teams in the NFC.
What about the other teams, though? What about the other teams other than Cleveland and Green Bay? Which one of these teams? You got Miami, you got Denver,
I wouldn't mind going
Tampa,
to Miami.
Arizona, New York Jets, Cincinnati Bengals.
I think the worst place is Cincinnati. But I think also maybe the place with a little bit of an upside that people aren't looking at is Miami. Because if you pick your quarterback, you get signed and you pick your quarterback, that team can be a good team. Tampa Bay is a big question mark for me. The Jets are a question mark for me just because it's not the quarterback, it's everyone else around him that I'm questioning. Mm-hmm. So
I think the worst place for me,
I pick Cincinnati.
Arizona because
they have a young quarterback.
I don't think Rosen's that good though.
You don't think he's that good?
And they just drafted him. So like management, you're going to go in to coach that team, and upper management's going to say he's our quarterback for the next 2 years, no matter what, and you're going to be like, F-bomb.
Well,
you know what I mean? Like you're going to be like
in New York.
But Darnold showed this year that he could be good, and he's finished the season really strong. I think he had the 4th best quarterback rating the last 5 weeks of the season. He played very well down the stretch. I know he had a tough game against the Patriots yesterday, but hey, he had a really good game against the Packers the week before. He put some games together. Rosen, did he have a good game this year? I don't recall one. He had a decent game against the 49ers once, but it was
I would
really
say Josh Allen had a better
I would agree with that. I think Rosen is the most he has the most incomplete grade, and that's a problem for me because he started almost every single game. Like that's a problem. Mm-hmm. He didn't show me through a course of 16 games if he's good or if he has a good future in this league. That would concern me as a head coach, and as a head coach going into a situation where I know that that general manager that team is going to stick with him. And I have to stick with him, and I don't have the freedom to kind of go get my guy, that would really concern me.
Yeah. But I think all these jobs are have an opportunity to do something depends on the head coach they hire. But we do need to take a short break. When we get back, Floyd Mayweather had a fight this morning.
Mm-hmm.
We need to talk about
UFC had a big fight this weekend.
Yes.
UFC 232.
We do have to talk about that as well, and we'll get right on that when we return.
Are you looking for help for your fantasy football team? Check out the GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast. Get today's best advice on who to start, who to sit, even who you should draft. From sleeper picks to red-hot lineups, they got it all covered for you. That's gsmcpodcast.com/fantasy-football-podcast. We'll cover traditional leagues, dynasty, PPR, even IDP leagues. When you need fantasy help, there's just one show to hit up. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit gsmcpodcast.com for more info.
Welcome back, everyone, to the GSMC Sports Podcast.
The UFC. Oh, sorry.
What? God, rude.
The GSMC UFC.
Well, it's just a sports podcast, my friend. But we are going to talk about the UFC. But first, Floyd Mayweather had a fight this morning against. Do we even need to say his name?
Guy from Japan.
Let's see if I can pronounce this.
Tenashi something.
Not
Tekashi 6ix9ine.
It's Tenshin Nasukawa.
There you go.
I think I got that right.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, this fight lasted less than a round. They Nasukawa's corner threw in the towel after 3 knockdowns by Mayweather. And during this fight, Mayweather was just smiling the whole time. He was toying with him.
That's pretty sad.
He was toying with him. This was
Everybody
joke.
who watched it wasn't impressed by everything.
It happened this morning, a pay-per-view fight. It's already on YouTube how quick it was.
Mm-hmm.
What a joke of a fight.
But speaking of fights, we got to talk about UFC 232 this weekend, and it was big. Chris Cyborg finally
Knocked
loses
out in the first round.
She went 20 fights in a row. She had lost her first professional
Was it
fight and then won
13-year
20.
13-year undefeated streak comes to an end?
Yeah, she goes 13 years between losses. She loses her first fight, and she loses to Amanda Nunes.
Probably her last fight, huh?
Amanda Nunes has 3 knockouts in the first minute against some big names. She knocked out Ronda Rousey.
So is this considered her the best women's fighter of all time?
I've seen that. I've seen people say that.
It's hard to deny.
I would say that she is the most devastating, at least the most devastating, because she knocks people out. She knocks them out. She doesn't
She knocked
submit
out
them.
the toughest woman, arguably in the fighting game in MMA, in Chris Cyborg, because everyone was like, Chris Cyborg's a monster.
Yes,
and she won overhand right, and she was on the ground.
I don't know if Nunes is like the best ever, though. I mean, like,
it's hard to argue.
I am a fan of UFC, but I am not I don't have the most knowledge of like 10, 15 years ago. And I know women's fighting has come up so much in the last just 4 or 5 years alone. Ronda Rousey is a big reason for that. Mm-hmm. Hater, lover, it doesn't matter.
She was a draw, no question.
She put a face to women's MMA.
She was gorgeous and a great jiu-jitsu fighter, and she was just a draw.
She was great. She was fantastic for the sport. Now, a lot of women fighters caught up to her because they were able to...
that first loss to her devastated her.
The women fighters were able to specialize while Rousey was killing it, but Rousey never specialized a lot of the other parts of MMA fighting, like her striking game.
She kept what she was good at.
And then it became a thing.
She never adapted.
If you could keep Rousey from mauling you, from getting on top, then you could beat her easily because she couldn't box.
Her 2 losses proved that.
Yes, exactly.
And Amanda Nunes is the third fighter to be a double champion.
Yes.
She's
a double champion.
Featherweight and bantamweight women's champion. First woman to do it. Mm-hmm. Cormier did it recently, and McGregor did it recently. So just in the span of this year, there's been 3 double champions.
Mm-hmm.
And speaking of the Cormier being a double champion, she's
the only one right now because Cormier had to give up his,
and McGregor
lost.
Yeah. So. And Cormier, he just gave it. He just said, "I just want to fight heavyweight," and so
he had to give it up. Though I know that like a lot of people, they were either going to take his belt, so he gave it up like 2 days before they took it. So he basically resigned.
Why can't you just let him do it?
He just wanted to have the dignity of doing it himself.
No. Why don't just do both weight class? I know that'd be horrible
on
the body.
Well, he says he's retiring in 3 months.
Yeah, I call bull.
I think he fights one more fight and then
2 more.
It.
Lesnar and Jones.
There are rumors that he's going to fight Jones. He said he wouldn't fight Jones, but apparently during that fight...
he wants to fight Jones.
But he will do it at heavyweight, for sure. He will do it at heavyweight.
And, no, Cormier's fighting 2 more fights. It's going to be Brock Lesnar and it's going to be John Jones. And
I hope you're right, but if he does retire in March, because he says when I turn 40, I'm done, and that's in March, and he said that, he can't fight 2 more fights before then. He would have to go further than when because there's no way he's going to fight...
He's going to make an exception. He's going to say before 41. Guaranteed.
We'll see.
I
think it's hard to walk away when you're on top.
John Jones is the undisputed light heavyweight champion after knocking out Gustafsson in the 3rd round.
Yeah, they stopped the fight.
It was pretty one-sided.
John Jones,
arguably still the best fighter
I
in the
will
world.
admit that I was wanting to see him lose.
I think a lot of people did. He's still a hated.
And I will admit that he's probably my favorite up-and-coming fighter when he was up-and-coming.
Mm-hmm.
Like back in the day, back when he was like, before he was a champion, when he was just going through the ranks of the UFC. But yeah, it's unfortunate how his life is kind of derailed in the last few years, and I didn't like his press conference, man. I know that might sound like a real sensitive thing, but I did not like how he acted towards that reporter in his press conference, that female reporter. Like I thought that was very
misogynistic,
cowardly. disrespectful beyond belief. And I know,
but he's a disrespectful guy.
I get it. But like, be disrespectful to your opponent that you're gonna fight. Don't be disrespectful to the media. You know what I mean? Like, he just acted like she was stupid, and I thought that was pretty harsh. And for a guy who's had all these problems, with staying clean, with, I don't know, not getting in trouble by the UFC.
He got really upset with her too.
I just think, like, have some, I don't know, decency, some self-awareness.
Dignity?
Yeah, like...
Well, he's already kind of lost that being arrested and crashing into a pregnant woman's car.
He's just like...
And running away from the scene.
I just want to see a little more humility from him. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And I know that sounds maybe petty.
That's never going to happen.
I know that sounds petty, like, we're talking about sports or whatever, but, like, at some point, man, like, didn't you learn a lesson, or, like, didn't it kind of, like, change you as a person for all the trials and tribulations you've been through? But regardless, he is an amazing fighter. He really took it to Gustafsson. I actually thought it was going to be a good fight. I maybe I'm naive there, but I thought it was going to be a good fight because, Jones, he's been away.
I didn't like Dana White, like, defending Jones either in, like, the interview. He kind of did.
It was a good card, though. Cyborg losing, John Jones winning, I think, make UFC 232 very memorable. The fact that it was in Los Angeles, which was interesting.
They moved it last second.
Because Jones couldn't fight in Nevada.
Talk about bending over backwards for one fighter.
Exactly. But John Jones is a draw, and I will fully admit that him and McGregor are the UFC's biggest stars. And
Jones
it was
and
Jones.
McGregor?
Yeah, Jones and McGregor for sure right now. Not that they're the best two fighters.
They're just
arguable.
They're the most controversial.
They're just names and they're draws, right? Like, John Jones is a guy you want to see fight.
John Jones is a hated fighter, and McGregor's more of a love fighter.
But even if you like John Jones, he's an exciting fighter too.
Oh, 100%.
And McGregor too. They're both exciting.
It's just him
fighters.
as a person is not that. What's the word? Good.
I hope that he becomes a better person. I really do, because I think and you know what's cool? He's got two brothers that have played in the NFL.
Who?
Arthur Jones from the Baltimore Ravens, Super Bowl winning player, who played for the Ravens when they won their last Super Bowl, and Chandler Jones.
Chandler Jones? Oh, that's right.
Arthur Jones and Chandler Jones and John Jones. They're all brothers. That is a heck of a family lineage right there.
Yeah.
You got three pro athletes, one who's arguably the best fighter in the world, one who is arguably at one time the best defensive lineman in the league, arguably, at least one of the better athletes, and Arthur Jones, who had a nice little career playing for the Ravens. I don't know if he's playing anymore, to be honest with you. But, hey, man, three brothers all making it big, that's pretty cool.
Yeah. But anything else you need to talk about the UFC?
You wanted to talk about Harbaugh before we end the show today.
Oh, right.
He loses, and speaking of sensitive and somebody who, I don't know, not playing nice sometimes, he didn't want to shake hands with the Florida coach. He didn't want to.
I think he's sick and tired of losing. And the thing is, he's never won the big one. And he's been so close to that so many times, even in the NFL and the college football ranks. And he can't get it done. And I know he's a Michigan native and alum and all this stuff. Is that a question that he might get fired if in 4 years from now we're in the same position where he loses again and again and again? He comes so close but ends up just short.
Maybe. Honestly, maybe. Because
there's only so much failure.
He doesn't have any excuses this time. He's at a big program.
This is his team. This is his team he recruited.
Like Stanford, there's already built-in excuses when it comes, and he was great at Stanford, don't get me wrong, but like it's hard to get academically the players that you want. It's hard. It's a lot harder to recruit at Stanford. Michigan, though, man, I mean, we're talking about one of the best programs in the country. He's had full recruiting classes. This is fully his team now. Like, it's not like he's using somebody else's players. The excuses are over. I think next year's a big year for Jim Harbaugh. If he doesn't win a conference or win a major bowl game,
yeah,
I don't know if he'd be fired, but I think that his legacy would definitely be tarnished a little bit.
Yeah. And one last thing. Congratulations, George Kittle and Travis Kelce. Travis Kelce had the record for most receiving yards by tight end in the one season, and then it was broken 20 minutes later by George Kittle.
Yeah.
Which was pretty incredible.
Fantastic seasons. It's crazy
Both
how
around, yeah.
both of these happen in the same year.
And like the same game.
Yeah, pretty much. Same week 17.
Yeah. But that is all the time we have today. Thank you so much for joining us. Tune us into our football and fantasy football podcast as we're doing those today as well. And as always, I'm Jeff Malinoff. That is Mark Souza, and we will see you next time.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.